welcome to Electricast. My name is Brian Krogsgaard here with Josh Olswich. Hey, Josh.
Mr. Brian, it is good to be back.
It's great to
with
be back.
you
Great
on
to
the
be
Twitch.
On the Twitch, or, if people choose to be elsewhere, then it can be elsewhere too. It's wherever they are, wherever they need to be. They can be watching on YouTube, they can be listening on audio, hopefully, or live with us on Twitch. The full, unadulterated methodology for getting the show as fast as it exists. Hey, I haven't.
Yeah, but for me, I have to listen to stuff on 2x, so I can't watch stuff live. I just can't.
Live is hard. Live is hard if you're a 2XOR. Like myself as well, I listen to things way faster than they should be. I can't listen to myself. No offense. I'm appreciative of all of you in the chat who are willing to listen to my 1x Alabama speed, but that's not for me. My listening ears are better than my talking mouth.
Yeah, I can't listen to myself at 1x. There's no chance.
Yeah. Hey, want to give a shout out because we are very close to a public beta, flip.xyz. If you've not claimed your Flip username, you should do it. Go to flip.xyz and sign up. You're going to love it. We're really, 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 really close. It's really awesome. I'm very excited. I really just want to show you the whole thing right now, but I won't do that maybe in the after show. Josh, last week we were optimistic for a little mean reversion. We showed some setups and we got some mean reversion. This show.
So hold on. We got to back it up. We got to take a little cloud here because look, we called this, okay. Credit where credit is due here, right? Like we've been watching this.
It wasn't a week ago, it was 2 weeks ago. And because we didn't record last week.
Exactly. And so, we've been watching.
In those 14 days, we've had a heck of a move.
We have. We've been watching the ascending triangle, the edge-to-edge stuff through the cloud on ETH, on BTC. We got blessed with Do Kwon buying a bunch of BTC. We can talk about whether or not that's good or bad, but I think ultimately this would have broken up with or without him. But with him, it broke up quicker. This is actually pretty unusual for a pattern, I think, to break this early. If you compare this to like 2019 went all the way to the edge, which
it's usually very
if you're a chart pattern maximalist, you know that chart patterns typically break when 3/4 full-ish, and you don't want to watch them go all the way to the end because then you typically don't get the expectation or the bias. So in this regard, we got kind of completely unexpected, just super early break, and here we are, right? ETH basically hit its edge-to-edge level.
Early break, it was like an on-time break,
Well, the cloud was never, I'll say never wrong, even though it did kind of chop you up a little bit if you traded it exactly as you should have. But you kind of have to read the market, right? If we're up 5-15% every other day, like I waited till 44 on BTC.
Yeah, well,
I waited a ton of time.
The notch wins again, doesn't it? Loves to go up in those little notches, little nooks and crannies, the Gulf of Ichi. But then it made its way back into the cloud, and off you go. So good for the price.
Good for Do Kwon. Good for Terra.
Now this does not necessarily spark a new trend, but we have made progress in terms of mean reversion, and now it's a question of can it spark a new trend? Can it take the next step, depending on other trend strategies you may use? Josh and I were just talking about the 200 EMA, which is an exponential moving average. It weights recent candles more strongly versus the SMA. You end up with two different things on Ethereum and maybe on Bitcoin. Does it show up? Yeah, it's on Bitcoin too.
Well, you know what's funny?
Yeah,
ETH is outperforming Bitcoin here. Is Do Kwon buying ETH?
No, it's just...
what's that about? That's weird.
It's merge, man. It's the merge, baby. You better get on board because ETH BTC is actually, by my systems, showing trend flippage. And I went Bitcoin heavy for a bit, but I'm back to being my normal ETH biased self over the past at least week as it was consolidating here, I think. But yeah, ETH BTC is still not like sexy in terms of a pattern, but moving average wise, it tells you to be in.
Well, it did have an Adam and Eve. I mean, that's garden variety Adam Eve completion right there. So the expectation on that W or whatever you want to think of it as is certainly continuation for ETH.
Yeah.
It's just weird to see. It's weird to see like BTC filing up its narrative. I mean, it had the like Ukraine Russia narrative going for it, which is great optically to like for people to just see like, yes, we can use this to do something. It's not just speculation. And then of course, ETH has this merge news.
I kind of hate the Do Kwon narrative being a proper narrative because I don't like when one buyer drives the market, and this is the second time in recent memory that's been the case for BTC, and I just don't trust it, right? It's like Sailor is buying good. One human decided to buy a whole lot, so that's why it's bullish for everything. One person, Do Kwon, on behalf of his protocol, very much decentralized, wow, chooses to buy, so therefore pump it. I don't love that narrative. I prefer the narrative where it's like, here's the same protocol in ETH's case, choosing to make an upgrade where inflation will be reduced dramatically. It'll probably become deflationary. I prefer that type of thing. Or if you had like several public companies buying or several protocols doing the same thing that Do Kwon's doing, that's one thing. But I just don't like it when it's one actor and you can see their candles, like he's tweeting Bitcoin hashtags or something at the same time you see $1,000 candle pop up. It's like, does the man not know how to freaking put on a TWAP? I just don't get it.
I am also extremely concerned for the long term. Just as we've talked about with Sailor, any independent entity or single entity rather, that comes in here with a bunch of money and buys a bunch of stuff, right? But if you look at staking versus like BTC proof of work, BTC holders account for like 60 to 70% of the chain at any given time recently, which is incredibly high. And that's not unlike proof of stake, right? So effectively, holders are, they're staking their hodl, right? If you're comparing like directly, because staking in a lot of these coins is as high as 80%. EOS, it's probably higher. Waves, I was looking today, it's like 80, 85%. Waves looks like a massive Ponzi. Speaking of algorithmic stablecoins, but
is that what's making Waves pump?
Yeah, there was a great thread by this 0x account breaking it all down. But it's just interesting, like how things are moving. ETH's got these fundamentals. ETH's got the staking narrative. ETH also has centralized problems because the ETH staking stuff is going to become an issue because a lot of that's going to be in centralized services. So, everybody's happy because it's going up. Fundamentals, like you said, I agree. But at the same time, you have to realize that if it's all on Lido and Coinbase, that's going to be a problem eventually, right?
Yeah. What happened to the old Waves charts? I can't even find them. Anyway, doesn't matter. So Waves is basically a proof of stake Ponzi now.
There's some circular motions regarding APYs being high enough to allow you to
old ICO
borrow.
Waves, right? Same thing.
Probably.
It's like used to be on Bittrex and Poloniex and
yeah. So 80 to 85% of it's being staked. So there's very little float. The APYs on their new DeFi stuff is extremely high. It's like 200% or something. It's ludicrous. And you can borrow. Let me see if I can pull up this tweet. I don't want to mess this up.
Finally found the one I was looking for. The Waves versus the dollar Bittrex chart that goes back to 2017 when it was 22 cents. That's amazing. You still there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to find this tweet. It's like 0x Hamcat or something, the guy's name. Um, where did I
I
see
mean, this is
this?
5x in the last month.
0x Hams is his name. Let me find the actual process here because he breaks it down. Okay.
Russian Ethereum.
Here's the flow. Deposit USDN, which is Neutrino. That's Waves'
Hmm.
stablecoin, algorithmic stablecoin. Deposit that, borrow USDC or USDT, transfer to Binance, buy Waves, convert, start over. It's kind of amazing. It's very much a closed loop in that regard.
Okay, so basically they're folding leverage, although the team themselves are. Fun.
I don't know if it's a team, a person, he breaks it all down here and says like this is unsustainable. The people in this DApp are going to be in trouble
Yes.
eventually, right?
Somebody's doing this with a smaller portion of their bag, and then they're going to take their bigger portion of their bag and they're going to put a big red candle on this when the time comes.
It's funny because I was trying to validate this info and Coinmetrics pulled their on-chain data for Waves, which is never a good sign. And the funding, if you look at the funding on like CoinGlass or something, it's super negative. So people are trying to short this and they're just getting blown out as it goes higher. Yeah. So that's interesting.
I have an old friend who used to have a gigantic bag of Waves, and I'm very curious if they actually held it all this time, because that would be awesome. I would be happy for them. Probably means they capitulated sometime in the last year and are now very sad. I mean,
we also had the Polygon. Polygon, what got hacked this week?
I don't know. Did Polygon get hacked? I can't keep.
Ronin, Axie Infinity. There's just so many things. It's like you could say anything. Be like, yeah, that got hacked.
Yeah, the Ronin bridge.
A couple weeks ago.
The Ronin bridge did get hacked.
Yeah, that was massive. At the same time, was anybody surprised?
Yeah, it was 1/3 of a wormhole.
I just feel like they're only going to keep getting bigger, right? As the value grows, the honeypot grows, right? The bounty to actually do something malicious grows.
Yep. I mean, I can see it.
It's only going to keep happening.
Well, I don't know. Let's get back to the kind of majors first before we talk about the hacks. Is there anything in terms of, do you think we're at a decision point? The 200-day moving average says that. Kind of the horizontal levels that I care about say that. It seems like if ETH wants to keep moving, it's got kind of a 4K round number potential target. BTC 50K, horizontal 52, maybe 50 to 52. Those are kind of the levels that I would look for next, personally. The 20-week moving average is one of my favorites in terms of giving you some good hints on trend flips, and those both say go full bull. Like, just say screw it. Like, don't look at levels, don't look at anything else, just hold on tight. Now, these can get faked out a good bit, especially when the trend on the long-term sense is wobbly, right? Like, so we've kind of had these multiple moves. But if you're just trading it pure, even though you know you might get faked out 1 or 2 times out of 5, this says it's enough of a hit rate to go for it and get stopped out if you get stopped out, but go along for the ride in the meantime. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think are we in a place where we can just hodl tight, or do you want to play it by ear and take your time?
I like that we've been in this range for a year plus now on BTC and ETH. I like that we had a pattern and it actually worked. I like that we're actually going to be above the cloud here. We're going to be above the 200-day moving average. We're already above the 200-day EMA. I like that we actually crushed the late longs and wiped some of that out a little bit. There's no free rides. because everybody, you know, as this is going up like it was, everybody's thinking, okay, you know, the music's got to stop sooner or later, right? So it's kind of behind us now. Q1 is behind us. Quad witching is behind us. I like Q2. I'm boring. I'm simple.
In
If I
terms of
pull out my almanac, I think this looks really good as far as the setup's concerned. Is it like raging bull right now? No, but I think where it's headed is completely fine
in
for
term,
up.
in terms of the late longs getting blown out, people may not understand that, but it was about 8.5% correction on Bitcoin. Probably a little larger on other stuff. I'm not sure. Like if you go, I think ETH outperformed, but if you look at some other things, they probably got corrected a little more.
Well, the odd thing is funding on BTC and ETH not that high, even at the top.
Yeah, which is exciting.
So this was really spot led, kind of all the way, largely by Do Kwon and other things. But it wasn't, you know, funding wasn't blown out, open interest wasn't blown out. We don't see these classic markers of like late cycle speculation type stuff. We're very much like early stage.
On our show 2 weeks ago, I talked about what I thought was the perfect trade. It was the perfect trade. I only played a portion of it. Classic. Solana is now blasting. I mean, it did toggle around that first target, 125. It's now 135 and just looks like it wants to go slam into that 200-day moving average at 150. This is one of the better mean reversion trades a lot of people sold down here. Like, it just looks very grinding capitulatory, and it's had a wonderful move off of that. If people were, even if you didn't buy the lows, if you bought kind of the whatever confirmation of the lows, you could be up 50 something percent on a liquid large cap. So that's a really nice move. We're seeing that across quite a few things. AVAX is at $100. It had a pretty nice move so far. I actually think AVAX is one of the ones that it maintained its strength better, but it's just now making kind of a higher high relative to what it made earlier in the year. So it might actually have Luna-ish potential in the sense of the route from here to back to its all-time highs is not that far. 123, 124 is very targetable. All-time highs, closer to 150. That's a nice move. It wouldn't make this chart look crazy. So
you could argue even for BTC, like all-time high retest this quarter. You could argue that. I don't think you'd be wrong. That's it. So all these altcoins, you know, it's the same thing. The average Q2 for BTC post 2013 is like 30 to 50%, right? I know it's a massive range, but that would bring us to all-time highs. So I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying if it did, it wouldn't be like out of the question for Q2.
And that doesn't change anything on our long-term outlook of this could all just be this filthy consolidation, right? That can include this, you know? So all-time highs could still mean we do it 2 more times after that and don't do anything in terms of BTC breakout until the end of the year or early next year. That would be still very painful for Bitcoin folks if you had this 2021 of nothing but altcoins and then altcoins outperform Bitcoin by making new highs and whatnot, and then Bitcoin consolidates. But at the end of whenever Bitcoin's done and it's ready to make its move, I do think dominance will have a incredible push.
Course correct.
An incredible course correct once Bitcoin's ready to like trend hard, and you'll get a 2 to 3x or something in Bitcoin, or a minus 50%. I don't know, whichever way it breaks, right? And dominance will just really crush a lot of other things. But there is a case to say like altcoins outperform Bitcoin the rest of the year if Bitcoin does stick within this kind of broad range. So
ETH historically does better in the first half of year than the second half. So to see ETH outperforming here is even like crazy to see. But I think in general, all the alts, they've just been sold off so hard for so long that they're quote unquote pumping because sellers are exhausted and or people are just sick of selling. some of the even like Zilliqa, like a random alt, right? Zilliqa's up like 300% this week. I don't know what it is necessarily, right? I don't think many people do. It's a very new-ish coin, um, but it's had a crazy run. It had a listing, I think, somewhere
Yeah, I took quite a
that
lot. I took quite a lot of heat saying that I thought DeFi was ready for positive performance after a long grind down. Honestly, it's been one of my better trades over the last few weeks. It's like some stuff is just doing incredibly well. I can talk about some that I don't hold, but it doesn't really matter. It's just all of DeFi doing the same thing.
the bigger problem isn't even crypto; it's the real world, the meat space. What's going to happen with rates, with the war, with all this other stuff going on, inflation?
Yeah, but we
Like it's
priced.
none of it's good.
But
None of it.
yeah, but we priced in some pretty nasty stuff, in my opinion. And
Did we price in a recession though? Is that priced in?
no, not full recession, but it could take a while.
Like we would have to fully decouple from equities and couple the commodities if we're actually going to have a chance here. I think this year, because man, have you ever been any more bearish on the world than you have been this year? Upcoming,
Yeah, I think that's fair. But
it's just ugly out there.
well, let's go ahead and look at a couple of things in legacy markets because this is interesting. Let's that same 20-week view, and that is a nasty kind of like bearish retest looking weekly candle. But it's right at the 20-week moving average. So, yeah,
That is a crazy, crazy shooting star candle
it is.
on the S&P.
Yeah,
For those not watching, I mean, that could easily make just a gross looking head and shoulders anyway.
man, that 2022 open is like iconic. Look at that thing. It's just right at the Pico top, right at the new year. Tell me that doesn't have at least some tax implications after one of the greatest years of markets ever. It's got to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing for crypto too is post US tax April 15th, April 18th, whatever it is this year.
Yeah. Q's nasty shooting star, same thing.
Oof.
That looks very, very dead cat bearish retest type candle.
If I don't know what that is and I'm trading that, there's no chance I'm long there.
Definitely
No
not
chance.
long. You're definitely not long.
When you see candles like that, just
I'm
for anybody.
currently long stocks.
Oh God.
but you look at this in isolation and you're not long. You're definitely not.
But when you see wicks like that, it always confirms the week after, and to invalidate the bearishness, you have to have a candle that exceeds the wick. So we'd have to have a crazy bounce next week to have a chance at saving that.
Here's the Qs relative to the 200-day moving average. Lost it completely. The S&P this is kind of your hopium, right? Maybe you gap down next week and then bounce off the S&P 200 and then go. And stocks love to do this, right? They love to just chop you to pieces. So this could end up a large distribution. So nowhere quick. So it doesn't mean it is going to correlate directly to poor crypto performance over the coming weeks. But I could totally imagine this type of scenario. And that could end up bullish, right? Then it takes, there's all kinds of outcomes still. I wouldn't just say it's over. But
yeah, no, it's in a range still, definitely. It just doesn't look healthy for continuation.
Right. And S&P versus Qs, I mean, just from a pure trend perspective, I think I'd rather be in the S&P than the NASDAQ.
I saw too that bonds had their worst quarter since like the 80s.
Yeah,
this
60-40 portfolios are just getting smoked.
Absolutely rough out there. Yeah. I didn't look at gold lately. I haven't heard much about it. I assuming it was just flat, but
it's down on the week, I think. Yeah, it's down on the week, but honestly, it doesn't look bad on a weekly basis. It's just it's piercing down kind of. It really needs to maintain this 1900 level. And it's pierced down into it a couple times. So maybe it's just punishing people. I think there's still a pretty decent demand for gold. At the same time, this daily doesn't, that's not exactly screaming everybody wants to own gold, is it?
No.
And then on the same front, Oil is teetering on the $100 mark, which is a 30% correction, and also still off the lows. I mean, this was just brutal, right? Oil to 130, immediately down 30% over the course of a week, and now in some kind of large consolidation range. But the trend on those things definitely looks pretty exhausted and like they could consolidate for quite some time. You've got a gold versus Bitcoin chart. How's that looking?
It's back at lows, or it's in the range. It's not at lows, but it's always good to check this because a lot of TradFi people look at the gold BTC comparisons.
Yeah,
and we haven't exactly had a shining Q1 compared to gold.
Another element of our potential strength in crypto is that the Dixie has now had 3 weeks basically of sideways consolidation. So slowing down of the Dixie upwards trend, if that advances, that will coincide probably with those legacy markets breaking down, crypto not following through, etc. But if this ends up kind of distribution-y and makes its way back down to mid-90s, then that would be very good for crypto, likely. As we've talked about, these kind of bull market trends, if this ends up 1, 2, 3, starting a new bull market in crypto overall, that would be exciting and surprising, but possible. Yeah.
That's why I think it's like, if you're paying attention to everything, I think it's so easy to be completely bearish on crypto because everything looks like Garbo, right? But if you're just looking at crypto for, like, if you're focused on crypto and you're focused on the news and the fundamentals and what are the pumpamentals, I don't care, think about whatever you want to think about. For me, it's TA really that leads and drives my trading decisions. Like, it's just easy to take those decisions because I know how to act versus like taking it all in and being overwhelmed.
I think everything looking Garbo, by your words, is a little bit relative, right? Sentiment is very, very bad across legacy markets. I saw somebody, apologize, I can't remember who it was. They weren't showing the VIX, but they were kind of showing a bit of a derivative of the VIX, kind of like what people are willing to pay for volatility. And the past few weeks with the Russian escalation in particular, the spike in that kind of downside hedging type stuff was basically the same as COVID lows, right? So that's always interesting when you didn't actually achieve significant lows, So 3 weeks ago, it basically said this here, March 2022, was basically the same sentiment-wise in terms of downside hedging as March 2020 was, even though you didn't see that show up in the charts. So it could be a sign that there's a lot of wall of worry climbing that can happen to follow that. So just because this looks bad at the moment doesn't mean it doesn't either consolidate or go back to the highs and then very quickly change to looking quite good, I think there's a lot that can happen there. And I think any continued de-escalation is going to be catch a lot of people off sides and end up being very bullish for markets and certain type of markets in particular. Now, you're not going to stop inflation. We're even talking about doing freaking stipends for people to buy gas and stuff, which is a horrible idea. I think it'll end up having the complete wrong result. Like, I think it'll probably force prices higher because it doesn't affect demand. Like, people don't change their decisions.
Right.
But anyway.
I saw today too a tax break or something for EV. It's similar to the gas stipend.
What they're not doing.
Yeah, it's the SAVE Act, $300 in an income tax credit. So I guess that's what you're talking about. Just crazy stuff.
Yeah. At the same time, though, they're not. One of our friends was talking about how they didn't do anything to incentivize public transportation, as an example. But if you have a car, then they'll give you some kind of rebate on that. So there's always these unintended consequences. Hopefully that just kind of falls on deaf ears. I do worry, though, like the way that the COVID checks worked, opens a massive window for this type of stuff, right? Like, well, we'll just spend our way out of any problem, and then that'll fix inflation because, well, how? Like it brings prices down because inflation is high, but at the same time, it's going to end up having an inflationary result. And yeah, I think it's just going to have massive implications on demand as a whole, as our chat's talking about right now. It's like you're not going to impact it. The UK just went through this with natural gas. We've talked about it a good bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I forget who said it, but they said they tell their central banker friends to look at the Bitcoin chart and ask themselves if they're making the right decision, because it's like the inverse of what they should be doing. so the more poorly the decision making, the better crypto tends to do, which is seemingly true thus far.
Yeah, I continue to generally believe my favorite hedges are things that just don't have this as much downside volatility, but are real assets, right? If you want to be safe, I don't really want to own cash, even though like the dollar might look okay. So I still personally like the idea of real estate and other hard assets. If you're looking for kind of I don't want to own the most aggressive stocks or crypto, but I want to own something that will do fine in an inflationary case, and in a deflationary case, the downside is more muted than some other things. Like I don't think real estate's going to go down like 50%, but you can betcha some of these stocks have another 50% to go if we have a proper recession. So that's my personal 2 cents. And I think gold is kind of performing its function in that regard as well, right? Like I think gold would have a lot of demand, 10, 15, 20, 25% lower. And there is a case for upside in gold. I don't know. I think that there's probably things I'd prefer to own than pet rocks, but anyway.
I just can't see a path for equities or whatever else this year, whereas I can see like a decent case for crypto being okay. There's stuff that you can look at and say, yeah, this is bullish, right? Gas all-time high, commodities all-time high, fertilizer all-time high. It's all bad, Ryan. It's all bad.
Well, the good news is that we
food shortages, right? We're that's coming likely.
That's next. I don't know if you've gotten a car worked on anytime recently, but we got a quote that can't even run diagnostics on a car for like a week and a half. And then it's several weeks to actually do anything to fix a car. It's like, okay, well, I'll just get a new car. It's like, what are you supposed to do? Rent a car for a month? It's ridiculous. So that's like I don't know if that's a supply shock or a labor shock or both, probably both. The world's kind of nuts right now, but
it's kind of a mess. Yeah.
I don't know the answer. I
don't know either.
This blend of safe assets and calculated risk on assets is my personal strategy. Still playing it pretty close to the chest, although I'm trying to have iron hands with ETH. I actually think the merge for ETH has really got some potential. This ETH BTC chart.
You too, huh? What a brave call. I saw Arthur put out an article about 5-digit ETH.
Yeah. Well, Arthur changes his bias quite a lot.
Yeah, but he's an influencer in his own right, in some regard, right?
Yeah. Well, I've been talking about this. It's not like anything new.
Yeah, nobody's. My point is, yes, of course, when you falsely bring down inflation and you start burning stuff, right? Yeah. Price is going to go up.
Some cope.
I'm so glad. Like, I'm right there with you. I've got plenty of ETH. I'm happy, but it's like, come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
One other thing with this rally, though, that kind of concerned me was that volume didn't really pick up anywhere that I could tell. I don't know. On the majors, at least, it just was still flat, which is worried me a little bit here.
Yeah. Oh, it's a bit of a sign that maybe it's just more chop.
Maybe. but you'd expect some volume on a breakout. Now we did see like liquidations on futures and whatnot.
Crypto
But
Ted called it the lukewarm ball of money season. It's like,
I guess, this could be just echoing kind of what's going on in the real world. Like people don't want to rush to put their money in anything, I guess. I don't know.
oh, this is a good one. Sonoma Valley in the chat said, my husband has an auto repair shop and is always slammed when the economy is bad. People repair instead of buying new. So maybe the supply shock on new cars and the prices and the economy overall being kind of crap is encouraging people to take their car to the shop instead. And that's what's taking a long time. So that's interesting. That might be a little bit of a leading indicator. Thank you, Sonoma Valley.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you like? Any charts that you love? Anything that you would love to trade?
I mean, all the alts look okay, right? Like nothing looks. Even Aave was up, what?
Even
a bunch of percent. Monero. Someone asked about Monero in the chat. Anything that's curling up like this and making higher highs and has a 50-200 cross coming up, like sure, yeah, it has a chance.
What I like is anything that still has a lot going on. It wasn't dead. It just wasn't the right time to buy. So like some of these DeFi things have some, I mean, Aave went up well over 100%. Solana went from 80 to 135. Like it's potentially on its way to a new trend here. 70% so far. If it flips that 20-week though, that's a nice signal as well.
Here's another weird like divergence. We're seeing stable coins not burn, but we're seeing stablecoin withdrawals from exchanges still, including DeFi. So I think somebody talked about this weeks ago about inflation being higher than stablecoin yield. Is that going to play a role in like shrinking the market? Something to think about.
I don't know. Josh, are you paying attention to any of the bridge wars?
No, I haven't been. Should I be? What should I be paying attention to?
Well, I'm speaking my bags. I was a pre-seed investor in Layer 0 and the Stargate token I bought on open market as well, but I also have vested stuff. But Stargate is the latest entrance and Layer 0 is the latest public entrance. They raised at $1 billion valuation from Sequoia and H16Z and other people and released their portal and it kind of entered the wars alongside Wormhole and Thorchain and all those other bridges that you hear about. Different take on it, but into that same arena. Some folks out there, I'm kind of one-sided. I want my bags to go up. But some folks are out
really?
there talking about the bridge trade or the omni-chain interoperability trade being 2022's version of the Layer 1 trade. And I'm down for that personally, but I didn't know if you'd been paying attention to it.
I just think all of this non-ETH stuff gets hit really hard when ETH merges, and it's cheap to do all this stuff on ETH because they already have the community, they have the devs, they've got somewhat of a walled garden.
If the chat wants to give me other names of other ones, I will repeat them all. I just was using that as my example because that's the one that I pay attention to. I think it's Synapse is another one. Wormhole. Give me bridge.
They just announced they have a token coming, right? Because why not? If you're in crypto with a project that has a heartbeat, you got to have a token.
Yeah. Wormhole is. No doubt they will. Yona says you still need bridges within ETH. Yeah, you need portability because even when ETH is all Layer 1 and sharded and all that, you still have to get between shards, right? I just think
the ETH TVL has been declining because it's going to other more pumpy stuff, right? It went to BSC because fees were too high, but after ETH merges, right, doesn't it all come back to ETH?
Yeah, but it's like on Layer 2s, it's on multi-sharded Layer 1. Throwing out a couple more things. Atoms IBC protocol within the Atom ecosystem, Chainlink CCIP, whatever Sealer is. There's a whole array of stuff. There'll be as many interchain protocols as there are layer ones. We'll see which one, if there's winners, if there's multiple, I don't know. But
Hey, it's a great way to take my casino chips between the casinos,
Yeah, it's a narrative that we need to let the listeners know about. Even if I am in massive profit on mine, I will disclose. I am in massive profit, and I'm very bullish on the long term. So whatever, don't whatever. I may hold,
that's fair.
I may sell,
Yeah.
I may trade, I may do whatever I want. But that's a narrative that y'all should be paying attention to.
I'm just not a bridgeor, so it's not for me, I guess.
Man,
I'm a simple man, Brian.
not being a bridgeor has been a costly mistake the past year.
I guess so. I guess so.
That's all I got, I guess. I'm keeping a close eye out. Like I had already said, I got the target I wanted initially, getting back to that 200-day moving average. I had high conviction on that. On ETH, we tapped it basically to the penny, 3487.30. Then we retraced 10% or whatever, and now we're kind of getting back up there. Am I getting bullish because of consolidation? Yes, because I'm a simple person and with a simple mind, and when number goes up, I tend to get bullish at resistance.
Solana's probably the most impressive. You can't even tell that there was a retrace that happened over the past couple of days. You have no idea.
Yeah, the Solana dip over the past couple of days got bought up strong. I wish I would have kept my trade open and just kept that foot planted. I would have made quite a lot of money. Still have done very well, but I should have made a lot more. So yeah, if we breach 3,500, I want 4K. So what's that? Another 15%, something like that.
On ETH?
Yeah. This is the year of being happy with 20% wins. If you can do that many times, then and maintain limited downside, you can have a great year. It's hard to hold on to something and say like, okay, I'm just gonna not do anything until I get a 10x. I'm not quite in that camp yet.
Yeah, everything looks better. I mean, it looks better than Legacy does. I'll say that, right?
Yeah,
that's for sure.
The token lockup time on layer 0 stuff, I think it's like 3 years for people that got in, like pre-seed, seed, all that kind of stuff. The people that did the public auction stuff on Stargate, I think the lockup on that is 1 year. So I have to hold longer than you. Don't worry about it. I guess I should.
That's all I got.
I gotta start doing these disclosures,
About what? That you trade crypto and hold it?
Yeah.
And you talk about it?
So ridiculous. And people will just come out with pitchforks. It's like they don't like when the VCs get it. Then they don't like when angel investors get it. Then they don't even like it when they have the opportunity to get it on public markets. Like my liquid exposure, I bought just like you could. Freaking A. And
well, see, that's why I don't talk about that junk. I'm disclosure free because I don't have any of that crap. So.
Disclosure free.
Disclosure. Josh hates crypto. There you go. That's all I gotta say.
He just hates everything else but Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the only one you have a personal, like really strong feeling for the fundamentals, right?
Correct. Yeah. There's a very strong conviction there.
Everything.
The other stuff is just funny play money that we're all just sort of, making stuff up about. So.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking about funny play money with you and with the audience. We appreciate y'all being here. And I guess we'll talk to you next week. What was the show title? Funny Play Money? Yeah, we can do that. Bye-bye. Go to Carpe Noctem on Twitter and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Subscribe to the show. Press like. Tell your friends. See you later. Bye.
The easy river has just run dry in a house of cards.